maybe I just want to contribute to what Sister Lea said. Sister Lea, I'm not sure whether you know that you could have now taken the floor longer to present your wonderful organization Solvodi. So maybe before I talk about the Nordic model, maybe Sister Lea, who is such a famous woman and one of the, well, she is the pioneer of anti-human trafficking engagement and action, and maybe she should speak first about Solvodi.
Yeah.
Maybe
I would say something. I'm very happy to have the occasion to say. I was as a sister, missionary sister, in Kenya, Mombasa, a paradise, very nice. And then people came who had enough money to pay a traveling in this paradise. And they have seen the misery and the poverty of people there, women and children. And they used that for her own pleasure. So I was so angry about that. And I spoke with the women. I said, what do you think, and so on. And they said, do you think it's a pleasure for us to go with all these idiots? And then I said, if you feel like that, let's go together and think what can we do to bring you out of that. And really, a lot of young women met school, met profession, they are teacher and others. That was very, very important. And then I have seen the children, and my foundation was Solvodi, Solidarity with Women in Distress, because I feel that prostitution diminishes all women, if they're in prostitution or not. It says, in our country, it says, women you can buy, and things you can buy is an object, it's not a person. So I cannot understand that we are not ready to accept that it's forbidden. In Kenya, it's also, the women go in prison because traveling in purpose of prostitution is forbidden. And they take the women to fill up their purses, and they have to pay. If they have no money, they go in jail. Never the men. They say you are walking on the street only to get a man for prostitution. So that makes me very, very angry. And the women I have met together are the same. And then I have seen a lot of children who are not accepted in their family because the mother was too young to get a child, or was not accepted, was not married, was not so. And then these children of these misused women are also put aside, are on the street. And that's why we have now, I am looking now for these women, and Solvodi I have given in other hands because I'm old. But one thing I will do is always being scared for children, young girls who are brought in prostitution, like Sandra. It's so awful, and it's such a big crime that the rest of my life, I will help these young children to get out of that, to get in school, to get healed, to get proud of their own person. I would like that every child can be proud of themselves. And that is why I will do everything to help young girls, children, and that's my new foundation is Foundation for Children in Distress, in Misery. And I'm happy, and I see it's very important. I can do as long as I live for this, for children. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for these words. Very touching and very with passion. And I think only with passion can bring something forward and stay connected and go on against all the obstacles that we meet in this fight. So thank you very much. Now, Inge, you can explain more about the Nordic model, please. Thank you.
I will do so. But first of all, thank you very much, Leah, for your kind words. And just to give you a short impression, well, I'm not a journalist anymore, but I used to work almost 15 years for First German Television for ARD as a journalist with the focus on the political, social, and economic development in Southeastern Europe. And it was the time after the Iron Curtain came down and later on after the Kosovo War. And as you know, these countries in Southeastern Europe, in Eastern Europe, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, were reform countries, post-socialist countries, with all these big problems which persist until today. So organized crime, prostitution, human trafficking. And as we all know, since the EU accession of Romania and Bulgaria, what we face now in Germany is that most of the women in prostitution are from these countries, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and when Sister Leah started her help program in Kenya back in the 80s, 85, I think you founded the first Solvodi, Solidarity with Women in Distress organization in Kenya. By that time, you focused on the sex tourism in these countries, but then you came back to Germany, and after 89, the wall came down, and you witnessed all this this influx of the Eastern European countries into Germany, into prostitution, all the Polish, the Czech, the Russian, and then later on the Romanian and Bulgarian women and very young women and girls who flooded literally the prostitution scene. And so you started Solvodi also in Germany. And I think we have right now almost 20 special advisory centers and shelters in Germany and also in Hungary, in Romania, and of course the big organization which persists since 85 in Kenya, with what you said, Solvidi, the follow-up organization for the girls victims of trafficking. And this is a life achievement, Schwester Leah, and thank you very much for this.
So I will go and read more. There are also questions now. For example, I once read that sexual services are the oldest profession in the world. Would you agree with this statement? And if this is the case, what is the prognosis of addressing demand? How difficult is it to address demand if it was supposedly always there? So could you just comment on this? Leah, you wanted to say, yeah.
No. Is that, yes. When I was in Peking in the conference, in the women's conference in Peking, there was a whole procession of comfort women from Japan, because during the war, the government has selected women to be for the soldier a comfort. I think it's such a Abwertung, it's a diminution and not respecting women in the society, to say they are just good for comforting the soldier. I think it's a whole thinking in the community that is influenced by acts like that. And these women were under the conference in Peking, and there were a whole procession, and they said, we are the comfort women. That means we are only there to serve men. And a society where only the men are the misters and the women are to serve them, that is not a society we wish in our countries. And that is always not respect for the women, for all women, not only for them who are misused, for all women.
I'm already looking at the time, but I have one question here, and maybe everybody of you could say one short opinion on this. And this is the real golden question. Of course, reduce the number of buying, but how? You know, so we hear a lot about it, and men agencies are talking about demand. But I still have to get the golden formula of how to tackle demand. What would you say? Lea, you are the next, please.
I would say sometimes in the earlier years, also a very big newspaper made reclame for Sonne, sun and sex. And they were making that in the news like that. So that was my first protest against that. And everywhere I shout that and said, that is not allowed. You would not write to them and so on. I think it's small things we have to be very careful not to allow. Also the small talks or jokes about that, not accept that. I don't know, but everywhere we are not in all the different places, but in the places we are, it must be clear that we are against this behavior against women. And prostitution must be seen as Verbrechen, als criminal act. And of course, when I have an organization who fight against, I would like that you help me to help. Now I said it's the children, but it's very, very important that the children are not misused. Children on the street. And I always think, each government must see that the children who live on the street, who survive because they are grabbing and stealing. When they are big, grown-ups, there will be not good in the society to bring them up. So every government has interest to give the children a chance, that the society has also the chance. If we are egoists, that is the argument that must be seen for everyone. I will like to live in a society where it's not the criminals who have the power.